Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. I'm your host, Morgan Klein, co-founder and CEO, along with my husband and company visionary, Devin Klein.
And together, with our amazing team, we are going to help you push past your limits, not just physically in our gyms, but right here, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually on the Burn Bootcamp podcast.
Together, we will take on challenges and break through barriers to transform into the best possible version of ourselves. We are more than a gym. We are a community. Your community. Let's go, Burn Nation.
What is up, Burn Nation, and welcome back to the Burn Bootcamp podcast, where you get all of your mental reps in. I'm here, as always, with my co-host, Trisha Pena, and we have a very special guest today, Ashley Hearn, not only a longtime Burn Bootcamp trainer, but also a menopause specialist and a coach, and she helps women through that phase of their life to maximize their health and their happiness. So we're excited to have Ashley today. You guys, listen, it is October 9th today, World Mental Health Day. We're talking about it. We got to talk about it. It's been something on our minds. You know, we're not just a physical gym. We talk a lot about how the mental and emotional reps are even more important than the physical reps. We're also, obviously, Ashley's here. We're going to talk about menopause today. And we've been getting a lot of requests for this, Hearn. Okay, so we really going to take some time to break this down today. I've been learning new terms. Perimenopausal is a new term I learned like 2 weeks ago. And I'm excited to educate myself on that. And we also have National Burpee Day, which I know Trisha is very excited to talk about. I'm pretty sure, Trisha, burpees are your favorite, are they not?
Love a burpee.
Guys, that is what is on the docket for today. Thank you for being here, as always. If you guys are just new to this podcast, I'm Devin Klein, and I'm the co-founder and visionary of Burn Bootcamp, along with my wife, Morgan Klein, who's our other co-host. And she sometimes is here with us on the HQ Crew episodes or not, but we have the podcast 3 times a week, okay? Usually on average, okay? Don't quote me every week. Sometimes we might have 2, but we're 3 pretty much every week. This is the HQ Crew episode, okay? So we get our team from HQ here at Burn together to bring you, like I said, those mental reps. And we also have an interview where we deconstruct the mind of somebody either out there in Burn Nation, a franchise partner, or one of our friends. I guess we've had Missy Franklin on. We've had Connor Fields on. We've had Kathleen Baker on. We've had a lot of Olympians on. We like to align ourselves with greatness, so we want to deconstruct the mindset of those who are doing great things out in the world. And what's the last one? Oh, yeah. The last one is... we can't forget this one. This is our member focus meetings. I get to sit down with members and we get to deep dive into your life specifically so everybody at home can follow along with their journey as well. And so I'm just having fun doing the podcast, guys. We're growing. It's been so fun. We've been podcasting for a long time, and it used to be the Devin Klein Show, Coffee and Kettlebells back in the day. We merged those into this Burn Bootcamp podcast, and we're just having so much fun doing it. And I'd like... Trish, you've been a part of the Burn Bootcamp podcast from its inception. We're kind of on season 2 now. Mm-hmm. And so I've really enjoyed having you as co-host as well. How are you this October 9th?
I'm doing great. And I just, again, for those who don't know me, I am Trisha Pena, VP of Marketing. And like Devin said, I've been part of the Burn Bootcamp podcast for a while. And one of my favorite things about it is I was a member first. Hearn has been my trainer for a really long time. Morgan Klein was actually my first trainer. And so this, as VP of Marketing, it really lets me put my member hat back on. And I really try and be intentional about that. But this really gets me into like that groove of really remembering, what our members are craving and seeking from us as a brand. So that's always going to be important to me. And that's really why I like being here. So thanks for having me, Devin. And I'm so glad you're here, Hearn. So we also, October 9th it's crazy that it's already October. I think we're going to blink and it's going to be Christmas. So, I'm in full swing sports mode. I'm 3 boys at home and we're hitting the football field. We're at least all 3, 2 of my boys are playing the same sport. So that makes it a little easier. But I think, just remembering to stay in the routine. And that's something that I am trying to be a little bit more, I try to be more aware of because I know when the holidays gets here, as a mom, Ashley, it's crazy town. So if I can just stay consistent with what I'm trying to do right now and just keep that focus all the way through the holidays, I'll be sitting pretty. So tell us a little bit about you, Hearn. Yeah. Introduce yourself with the people.
Absolutely. Devin, it's funny that you brought up the Devin Klein Show because I'm pretty sure I was on that with you.
Many times.
Yes. Coffee and Kettlebells. Mm-hmm. So this is not my first time here.
You've been a regular, that's for sure.
Thrilled to be back and really in a different capacity this time. So It's funny. It's October 9th. My youngest child turns 10 in 2 days. And I joined Burn Boot Camp as a member when she was 3 months old.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like my decade mark of being at Burn Boot Camp, which is just like so overwhelming to me in so many ways. But I'm really excited to be here. My passion really is to empower women with knowledge, and kind of started as obviously a trainer. I'm coming up on my 8th year as a Burn Boot Camp trainer. Then I got my certification in pre and postnatal training. We had so many pregnant members one year that I was like, I have to figure this out. And now it's menopause, right? There's so many women in our gyms that are walking through this transition. It's about a third of a woman's life. And so I really just wanted to educate myself on how we can best support our members through that transition. And it's just become a passion project of mine. It's so fascinating. And I truly believe, in the mission statement of Burn Boot Camp that we empower women. And one of the ways we do that is with knowledge. And so this is just one small part of that. But yeah, we're in birthday season, full swing at my house. My daughter turns 10 and I turn 45 in a week. Oh, 45, mid 40s, but we're thriving right in our 40s, thanks to the knowledge that we have in that. So it's good times all around.
There's two reasons to celebrate. One, because it is your decade burniversary.
Yeah.
So that is, wow, give it up for Ashley,
Yeah.
everybody. Come on out
10
home. Let's
years.
go. 10 years of dedication. And also, we share the same birthday.
I'm a day after you.
The day after me. Yeah, you're the
Yes.
16th. I'm the 15th.
Yeah, we're not the same age though.
Well, like I'm calling you on like 11:59,
Yeah.
and then talking to you till 12:01, and we're at the same day.
birthday.
Yeah,
I
it's the
know.
same
I
day.
send him a message, happy birthday, and then he sends me one right back the next day. So
Yes, so lots of reasons to celebrate. Another reason to celebrate, everybody, is National Burpee Day. It is
Yes.
this Saturday, all right? Get ready for it. Burn Boot Camp is showing up strong for National Burpee Day. I will be in California, the Golden State, in Costa Mesa, doing burpees on the floor with all of our Costa Mesa members. Can't wait. It's going to be so amazing. And we love some burpees here. Trish, you especially love burpees here. But if you're listening and you aren't a member, or you are, of a local burn, show up on Saturday, all right, for National Burpee Day. If you're not a member, then we have an opportunity for you to check out a location. Most of all of our locations do some sort of free trial. So pop in and check it out and have some fun on Saturday with us. Or if you're not near a gym, you can also pop into Burn On Demand, download our app on the App Store. It's on both Apple and Google, and you can join us virtually. And what happens when you join virtually is our VP of Fitness, Matt Morris, he's our lead trainer of our Burn On Demand studio. He'll put your image up next to like 12 or 11 other people, and you'll feel like you're actually in the gym, even though you, or the closest thing to it, even though you're hundreds and hundreds of miles away from a nearest burn. So that's really exciting. National Burpee Day. Trish, I know you have like some type of like comment for National Burpee Day.
Well, yes, there's a whole reason I love a burpee. I think I like a burpee because it's that mental challenge, right? I mean, no one actually like really likes it, but you just, you want to get like that mental strength, right? And then like it also is a really good indication for me on like where I'm at physically with like my physical endurance. So those are two reasons. And then, I mean, we do birthday burpees at Burn Boot Camp. Burn Boot Camp is all about burpees. So of course, from a marketing perspective, we're going to lean into that and we're going to celebrate. And I cannot wait to watch Burn Nation show up on October 12th for National Burpee Day. Bring your friends, tag us on social media, tell us all about how many burpees you did that day.
So last month we had 4 challenge exercises for the month of September, and full burpees for maximum repetitions in 2 minutes was one of those 4 exercises. Okay. And I want to see where we all ended up real quick.
Okay.
I started at 42 and ended up at 50.
There you go.
I had an 8 rep increase over 30 days. Did you guys keep track?
I did.
I did.
Okay. What was it like? What was your
Go ahead.
Do you want me
experience?
to go first? So the first day we did it, I think it was like my 6th station. So I didn't do very well. I got like 32 maybe.
Don't you hate that when you're like,
I was so mad.
it's the last station, you just happen to be in that one odd group that gets it last.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I ended at 50 also.
There you go.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
Way to go.
I couldn't do anything else after that, but I got 50 in 2 minutes.
That's awesome. Well, I'm the weak link here. I got
No.
to 42 as my
No, that's
max.
great,
So I'm going to keep working on it though. I'm going to show up to National Burpee Day and get 50 now.
You can
Me
come
and
on my
you-
birthday and do 45, and then just you got to get
And
5
let's do
more.
5 more.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like if we were just all doing it together and you were just pacing,
Yeah.
that would be it.
I
Yeah.
think
That's all
so.
you need. You just need a pace car. That's
did.
it.
I did a pace car. I did the math though in my head of like how many burpees I needed to do in a second or to make it to 50 into 2 minutes, and I think that threw me off.
Yeah. Don't
So
do
I shouldn't.
math.
I shouldn't have done that.
Don't
But
math.
anyways.
I just went blind basically and just said,
Yeah.
I'm going to work as hard as I can, videotape myself, not
Oh.
worry about counting. and then go back afterwards
Oh,
and,
that
and
was
then and then
smart.
count. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'm pretty ambitious, so like I'll definitely give myself an extra 3 if I'm or 4 if I'm because in my head, like I'm not trying to be dishonest. In my head, I actually did those. Like
Right.
I went like 44, 47, 48, 49. You just skip over the middle.
Lack of oxygen. To the
Yeah,
brain
lack
while
of
you're doing
oxygen.
it, you know?
Yep. So we're look forward to just continuing to track. And the month of October is a really important month for Burn Nation overall from a fitness perspective because we had 17 protocol titles. And as of October 1, you guys had saw on our social media, if you haven't, you had heard it on the podcast, we reduced that down to 9 so that we can expand the creativity inside of the gyms, that we can make sure that every single protocol is exactly what it says so that when you show up, you know what you're getting. But most importantly, so that we can expand underneath and do different formats, different new exercises. We really believe that innovation is just creativity in the workout. It's just excitement for our members. We don't have to do anything like net new, like altogether in order to create excitement and innovation. We just have to keep things fresh and always interesting. And so that is our commitment to you here at Burn HQ. So let us know how you're liking some of the more recent workouts, and especially as we go into 10-1 and beyond, how the creativity under the hood will tend to get widened. Speaking of new, all right, we have location. Can y'all believe this? Location. Sometimes I can't. I'll pinch myself. But then I snap back to reality and I'm like, yeah, we all worked hard. Colleen and Tom Tracy worked hard. That's right. Number 412 in Burn Nation, Harleysville, PA. We are so thrilled to announce the grand opening of our Harleysville location. Colleen and Tom are already doing great right out of the gate. Join us in congratulating these two amazing individuals on their first, and for some reason, I don't think it'll be their last Burn
Definitely
Boot Camp
not if I know Colleen.
location. They are quite an ambitious and just amazing family. So location 412, you guys, can you believe it?
It's amazing.
Ash, you've been here for a decade.
Yes. I think location like 7 was open or something when I joined. It was definitely in the with under 10.
Trish, when did you first join? It was in Cornelius when Morgan was training, and that had to be in 14?
It's 8.5 years because I joined when my 8-year-old now when he was just able to go to Child Watch. So that's how I know.
Yeah.
That's so funny that when you said that.
Yeah.
So I think, it's funny, Devin, and you pulled up this email that I sent you guys. I think I became a member right when the expansion really took off and you guys were making those record breaking, and I might have a heavy PR background. And I remember emailing Devin and Morgan, I really want a job here because I really think I can contribute to the success of this. So I think that's also where I remember telling you. So it was right when you guys started franchising really fast. What was that, 2000 or us? I'm going to say us. When we started franchising.
For
Yes,
sure, yeah,
us.
15. It was 15.
Yeah.
Yep.
Which makes sense.
Yep, 2015. So you
My
were
math is mathing.
Your math is mathing.
You were 14 then probably, or late 13 maybe even, because 14 is when Cornelius was officially open.
It's 15.
Yeah, we had sublease studios. Do you know where Elevation Church is now?
Yes.
Here, right? So that building was, and I think you already know this, that building was the very first original Cornelius gym before we moved into a brick and mortar. Nobody would give Morgan and I a lease. They said we didn't have enough money in our bank accounts to be able to secure a lease. And they weren't wrong. I mean, probably wouldn't have done it either. But, we did have a couple people that believed in us. And actually, the person that loaned us this building originally, we shouldn't have gotten the opportunity to do so if you were to underwrite Morgan and I, but he looked at us and was like, you know what, I see something in you guys, and gave us an opportunity to be here. And we're still sitting in the building today. Now it's Burn Studios. It's not Huntersville Burn Boot Camp anymore. But speaking of success and you being here for it the whole time, our success is really defined as what our members define success as, right? And so this Burn story that I want to share with you from Meredith Pitts from Acworth, Georgia is extremely powerful. It's extremely motivating. And we're going to play this. It's about a 3.5-minute story. And I really want you to sit back and think about what this means to you. And then we're going to move on. We got some member questions today for the rest of our talk here. We've got a little trainer talk, and also we're going to let the expert do her thing. All right. That is Ashley Hearn on menopausal. All right. We're going to get there toward the end. So stick around, and we're going to make sure that you guys are all educated on that. Listen, let's roll this video from Meredith Pitts, Acworth, Georgia. Incredible member story. Take a listen.
My name is Meredith Pitts, and I've been coming to Burn since April of 2024. In March of 2021, it was a regular day. I took my kids to school, I went to work, left work, picked my kids up from school and came home and decided that we were gonna have pizza for dinner that night. And so I left the house by myself to go and get pizza. And on the way home, I was hit head on at a high speed by a drunk driver. The driver did not survive the crash, and I was left with multiple injuries. Both my lungs collapsed, my carotid artery was damaged, I had damage to my left eye, my right arm had nerve damage, damage to my liver, and both of my femurs were broken. So I spent about 3 weeks in the hospital and left with lots of metal in my legs. I left the hospital in a wheelchair, and then through lots of PT, moved up to a walker and then to a cane. And then almost 4 months to the day, I was able to take my first unassisted steps at PT. I think I kind of buried my head in the sand for a little while and just tried to come to grips with the idea that there are a lot of things that I would never be able to do again. And then earlier this year, I had some friends that started talking to me about burn. We're members at Northwest Christian Church, and there is a large group of ladies there that come to burn. And they just started telling me how amazing this facility is and the camps are, but also how wonderful the community and the trainers are. And so in April, I thought, okay, I'm gonna give it a shot. It won't hurt anything. I have been doing nothing for about a year now. I need to maybe start trying again. And so I came to my first burn camp. Amanda was the trainer that day. She knew that I was coming, and she welcomed me in, had modifications ready at all of the stations, and basically walked me through each of those to make sure that I was comfortable and would be able to do the exercises to the best of my ability. I left that day knowing that this is where I needed to be. This is what I needed to do for myself, but also for my family. Just since April, I've come so far. There are a lot of days that I only need one modification at maybe a camp every now and then. Within the past month or so, I jumped rope. I ran some of a half-mile finisher, and I did a box jump. Things that I never thought that I would be able to do. Each one of the trainers here has been incredible and has provided me with the modifications that I need and the support that I've needed at every camp that I've been to. I really feel like one of the greatest blessings that the Lord gives us is community. And I have found that community here at Burn.
You guys, wow. Wow, I'm not gonna lie, I didn't see that story before we aired today. And I usually will take just a little look at them. I've been gone all weekend and been busy. But wow, that is an incredible story. And I just want to go around the horn here and give one takeaway, one, quick 30-second takeaway that inspired you guys from Meredith's story. I'll go first. What inspired me is, she said that she basically went away. Like, I tucked myself away. I went into this hole. I was there for a year, and you just have to imagine some of the dark mental places that you have to be when you're in the middle of that. 6 months in, you're still not feeling great. You still don't believe you still don't believe you're going to be able to do a box jump one day. You are looking at the future as, maybe not such a positive outlook, but then, she made a decision, and that one decision was to just be open, like have an open mind. And, people hear burn boot camp and they're like, and you just got in this horrific car accident, your legs essentially mangled, your lungs collapsed. And somebody's like, hey, come do this boot camp with me where we jump on boxes. And you're like, she could have easily been like, guys, come on. Do you see my car? Did you see what happened? I'm not doing that. But she didn't. She didn't let her circumstances externally define who she was internally. And for that, we are so grateful for your strength, Meredith, because you just inspired thousands and thousands of people. I'm sure there's so many tears right now, whether you're driving on your way into work or walking the dog or just listening while you're doing some household activities. But we all are stronger for your story, Meredith. Thank you for sharing. Trish.
Yeah, I mean, mental strength. Gosh, Meredith, you are an incredible human being. You have obviously positive self-talk going in your head. You can't go through something like that. Like Devin said, I mean, it would be so easy for you to just not want to go to burn boot camp or not want to continue on a path and just take whatever the doctor said was going to happen to you and just live with it. But instead you had determination and you persevered. And I mean, I love that you had the community behind you. I love that you know the importance of community. Watching that video, if you're not watching it, go back and watch her story. You can see just people clapping for Meredith as she's doing some of the things maybe she thought she couldn't do. What came to my head was just mental strength. You are incredible. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Ashley, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm actually glad I did watch it beforehand, or I probably would have been crying up here because it was just such a touching story. And I think the thing that stood out to me is kind of what she said at the end about, one of the greatest blessings the Lord gives us is community, and just the power of that community, the people that believed in her and asked her to come. Mm-hmm. Whereas before she said she had kind of made peace thinking there were things she would never do before. But this community of her friends saw something in her and said, hey, why don't you just come with us? And their belief in her translated into her belief in herself, and even her trainers believing in her, and just the power that we have as community to speak life and bring life into one another. And now, Meredith, you're doing that same thing for others. I can't imagine people who are watching your story and maybe they feel that same way, that they think there's things that maybe they can never do again. And yet your story inspires them to maybe believe in themselves and to try. And you never know what you're capable of until you try. We say that on the mic all the time, but that's because it's true, right? You never know what you're capable of until you try, but sometimes it just takes someone else believing in you first and calling that out in you. And so I'm just so grateful that you were willing to share that story with us. My heart is truly touched, and I can only imagine the impact you're having on your community as well.
Well, keep it going, Meredith. That's an amazing box jump too. You landed it. Heels were clean on the box too. They were clean. If you're not visually watching this and you're listening, then you must be on Apple, because here on YouTube and Spotify, we have the video. So you can always tune in and watch what we're watching as well. And we appreciate you, Meredith. If you'd like to send in your story, okay, we have our producer, Chelsea, on deck waiting on the other side of podcast at burnbootcamp.com. Go ahead and submit your story there. Her name is Chelsea. She will be all over it, and we will communicate with you from there. Let's move on to a member question. This one is from Casey from Meadowbrook, Alabama, and she says, what's your go-to healthy meal that feels like an indulgence? And this is a very interesting question. I have a chronic, self-proclaimed sweet tooth. And there's a little bit of issue I have with like self-defining and, like I have a sweet tooth, therefore, I'm convincing myself that I need sugar. But I generally have just built this habit over a long period of time since like back in the day when I would walk up to I used to be on food stamps, and I'd walk up to Aldi's, if you guys have ever heard of that chain, and I would go and I'd get the generic version of the Pop-Tarts, the brown cinnamon sugar ones from like Kellogg's are like the best food ever. They put like all types of stuff in there. They probably shouldn't. But then you get like the generic kind that aren't quite there, right? It's not quite there. It's like whatever the magic sauce was didn't enter those. And I used to crush those at night, and even as a kid. And so that habit carried with me to the future. And I tend to just try to not deprive myself, but put a strategy in place. So the answer to your question from my perspective, what is your go-to healthy meal that feels like an indulgence, is fruit. And for me, it's fruit. And I'll tell you why. Because your body can easily adapt to sweetness sensitivity over just a few days. If you don't give yourself, let's just use like Skittles for an example, or, Twix, or like something that's obviously just like processed sugar. If you are used to eating that type of food, well, then fruit doesn't taste so sweet. It's like, what have you done for me lately, sugar? Like if I haven't had Twix in 6 months or whatever, and I've been eating fruit, that fruit now, the sensitivity is just the same as it would be if I was eating Twix. And so you've got to give yourself this little grace period. Like it's like almost like the dark period of I know that when I'm eating this bad processed sugar is terrible for me. I know it's toxic. I know it's inflammatory. I know it's the root inflammation's the root cause of all disease, and I know sugar's directly correlated with inflammation. So I've got to stop this habit because inflammation, root of all disease. I'm going to be sick and unhealthy over time. Okay, so how do I do that? My number one rule for this for myself is don't deprive yourself of anything. I think people go right to, I'm never having that again. Yeah. Not me, never again. I'm quitting and I'm done. It's like, as soon as you quit that hardcore and you say, I'm done for 90 days, you have now begun the timeline in which you start over again, right? 90 days later, you're going to be like, okay, day 2, here we go. I got one more day left. And then you have no more days left. And then what happens after you don't have the carrot on the stick hanging out in front of you anymore? So what I like to say is eat whatever the hell you want to eat. I don't care what it is.
Say it louder for the people in the back.
Eat whatever you want to eat. Don't care what it is. Do me a favor. Have a bowl of fruit first. Just do that. Like, go to your fridge. I wish I had a picture of it. We have this big tray, and it's a huge tray, and it's like maybe half the size of this table I'm at, and it's huge. It barely fits in the fridge, and every compartment has different chopped up, cut up fruit in it. And my kids love peppers. I don't like eating peppers, so there's one safe for peppers. I don't eat those. But I'll go home every night. When I get home, the first thing that I'll do is just stuff it's on the counter and I just start going to town. Because otherwise I'm going to town on my kids' chicken nuggets and all the other things that are on the counter. I'm going to town on fruit, and then I'll break it out again. Even before I'm hungry, I'll put it out on the counter at night so that it's ready and available and right in front of me. And what I'll do is I'll sit there and I'll watch my podcast or do my, drawings or whatever. And I'll eat. And I'm not even conscious about it. I'm just eating. And like literally 9.5 times out of 10, I do not have a single craving for sugar after that. As kids, what our dads used to tell us, like, just drink water first. It's kind of that same idea. If you're hungry, drink water first. If you want sugar, just eat fruit first. Eat fruit, watermelon. I've never seen anybody, proclaim to be like sick and unhealthy off eating too much fruit.
Agreed.
Right? It's live, living enzymes, micronutrients that we all need. So all sugar, my point is not made the same. Do not demonize bananas, you guys, or strawberries or any fruit because it has sugar in it. There is a difference, okay, in fructose versus sucrose sugar. There is a difference. And we're going to talk a little bit about net carbs as well here in a minute, but I want to pass it to Trish to talk about your go-to healthy meal that feels like an indulgence.
Yeah. Well, first I'm going to say, I'm so glad you hit on this fruit, because I feel like on my scroll on Instagram, there's so many like influencers that are saying like fruit's bad. But then like someone else will say like, tell me last time you saw someone that ate fruit and that they're like significantly overweight. So I just think that's good that you clarified that, Devin. So thank you for bringing your knowledge to the table as always. My go-to, and this is not meant to be a plug, but it's an Afterburn bar. I love our Afterburn bars so much. I know it's in them. I know that they're made with like our bodies in mind. So they're good for us. And I'm also, if you guys have heard me speak, I'm very high on my protein. Like I always prioritize that first. And I know that if I'm feeling the urge to snack and I want like a little bit of a sweet craving, I want to make sure that I'm going to be full too. And I know that every time I have an Afterburn bar, it satisfies that sweet tooth, but then I'm also getting my protein in. And so it's like a win-win for me. And so that's my go-to. It's as simple as that. What about you, Hearn?
Well, I also want to say, Devin, I'm so glad that you brought up fruit as an option as well, just because it is also full of antioxidants, natural anti-inflammatories, things that we're going to talk about when we get to menopause, fiber. A lot of our berries have a ton of fiber, which I know we're also going to talk about that here in a minute. So I love that you brought that up as an option for that so-called sweet tooth. I kind of have that too. I'm with you, Devin. I don't like to say, oh, I have a sweet tooth, but I enjoy sweet treats. Maybe that's the way I could put it. So for me, Trish, mine is similar. I love to make the Afterburn protein bowls because they have a couple different things. They have peanut butter in them. You can make it with any kind of nut butter, obviously, and almond butter, peanut butter. You can put flaxseed in it, a little bit of honey as a natural sweetener. You can kind of make them however you want. You could put dark chocolate chips, coconut, right? There's different things that you can put in there to kind of change it up and make it feel like a little bit of an indulgence, but I'm with you. Like I really want to prioritize my protein goals, and I want to feel full. If I'm going to have anything that feels like a treat, I don't want to eat something and 30 minutes later I'm starving again. So, having that little bit of fat in there as well kind of helps you to feel more satisfied, full longer. And they're also just delicious, especially with the new Afterburn. That chocolate is literally tastes like, I can't even get over it. Every time I have it, I'm like, this is the best protein I've ever had. Again, not to be a plug, but genuinely, and it bakes really well and mixes really well. So that's one of my go-tos, but I'm with Devin too. Fruit is a big one for me that I try to go to just because there are so many health benefits of fruit, especially when we talk about berries and some of the other things.
I've had those. I love those balls, and I think what's also great is our kids. My kids
will eat them.
Yes, and so it's teaching them also to like choose the healthier options, and I like educate them on like why this is good for you and like what's in it, the substance, the protein. So. Yep.
I just can't make them when my 20-year-old son is home because he eats the entire batch. And I'm like, seriously, like you left none for anyone else, but he can do that.
And I know we're not plugging, but shop.burnbootcamp.com.
There you go.
Right.
Afterburn bars. There's triple chocolate, cookies and cream, peanut butter cup. The one they're speaking of, peanut butter cup.
Goodness.
My favorite in priority goes peanut butter cup, triple chocolate, cookies and cream.
That's me too. That's my order.
Yeah. Okay.
Same.
Yeah, Samesies. I think that's pretty universal that the peanut butter cup is the most
So
delicious
good.
one for sure. Shop.burnbootcamp.com. Okay. Listen, that is great. Any other comments on healthy meals that feel like an indulgence, that feel like you're doing something bad for yourself, but it's actually something good? Any other thoughts?
Well, I would just, lean into if you have kids, they're always watching you. And I think that that's something. I have a 10-year-old, an 8-year-old, and now a 3-year-old, and they've watched now me go through my, obviously it's been a journey, right? I didn't just nail it right away, but they've watched me now choose the foods that I'm eating, and they now want those foods. They now eat hard-boiled eggs, and because they now know that it's going to satisfy them, and they're playing sports, so they want to have those, we call them gains in the house. So I just think that there's always little people watching you, and so just make sure that you're not just doing it for you, but you're also doing it for your kids too.
Yeah, I think Devin, you made a really important point too that I think is important to call out before we move on. Is just this idea of deprivation. I think sometimes we think, I have to substitute some meal that feels like an indulgence versus having the things that I think I want. And if we just have balance, a lot of times, I might have ice cream with my kids every now and then, because when I do deprive myself for an extended period of time, what happens is typically I end up binging on those things versus just weaving them in every now and then and having 90% of my diet be these choices that we're making that are good for our bodies. But then we have those things, so we're not depriving ourselves. I think that was just such a good call out, because that mindset, I think, leads to a lot of disordered eating and things like that we really want to be protective of.
Yes, you guys, this is amazing so far. I hope you guys are having fun. If you're having fun out there listening to what's going on here in the studio, make sure that you leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Okay, we're going to move on to health and fitness headline. This is called The Power of Meditation. We're going to link this in the show notes so you have it. It's an article from the Mayo Clinic, and it just talks about the depth of meditation. It's World Mental Health Day, and what we want to do here at Burn is always bring the physical back to the mental. It's so important. We really believe in the mind-body connection, it already existing, but the body is just a program of the mind's conditioning. The mind gets to make the decision. The body is the program that runs over and over and over. It's kind of like the software, right? And we get to reprogram our mind. The body executes what the mind thinks is right for us. And so I want to talk a little bit about meditation, because in terms of like mental health, this has been, for me personally, a very important topic in my life. To be able to, people ask me, although I don't see it this way. People ask me, Devin, how do you do it all? Like, how do you have the big business and the babies and the good relationship and all the things? And I'll tell you, it's not easy. I don't necessarily agree that having it quote unquote all is my situation, but I do understand that there is that perception, and how do you do all the things that you're doing without tripping over yourself mentally, right? Like so many of us do. And I would say, like, I'm just like everybody else, and I trip mentally all the time. But you have to have an antidote to the kryptonite. And for me, if I ever start getting in a space where my mind might stray from optimistic, positive, that's my nature. So sometimes I'll stray from that, and that's when I'll go meditate. And I don't just meditate to close my eyes. I used to actually think meditation was like for the gurus and kind of like, why would I meditate? Like when I sit here with an with my palms to the ceiling, seated, do I have to get like nose piercings to do this? That was the stigma around it, that's not for me. That's like for the hippies type deal. And come to find out, I got a little hippie at heart, because when I finally gave in, I met I've been meditating for a very long time, but I finally took it to the next level about a year and a half ago when I hired a mental health performance coach. His name is DG. He's been on the podcast before. And I was doing this form of meditation long before, but he helped me take it to the next level. It's called Kundalini meditation. And I just wanted to discuss this with you all for a moment to maybe get you interested in meditation. If you have the same stigma like I had, like, I don't know about this guru kind of spiritual meditation stuff. What is this? Am I wasting my time? Do I even know how to do this? Why do I need to do this in the first place? The reason that, and this isn't for everybody, but the reason that I needed to do it was because of self-control. If we don't take time in our daily lives to go inward, well, then we're going to be ruled by everything outward. And at any given time, you guys, and you're the same way, maybe I'm a little bit more amplified because I can pick up my phone and there's 7,000 employees across Burn Nation. There's hundreds of thousands of members. There's problems on problems on problems on problems as the leader of the company, both Trish and I, get the privilege of experiencing every day. Now you have to, over time, get used to that because it's a lot. And, any time you pick up your phone, you could have this big, problem right in front of you. And there's a gateway to go down mentally. There's a gateway to get pessimistic immediately. And you have an excuse and it's valid. And if you start complaining to people around you, then they're going to listen because it is valid because you have all these things going on. You have the right to complain a little bit. Well, I don't think that I deserve the right to complain about something that I put myself in the position to experience. And so for me, I have to have this meditation time, and it's not consistent on like a daily basis. It's consistent on a negativity basis. So if I start getting a lot of negativity in my life, I will literally go in my sauna. You could also do this outside. I've done outside many times when I'm not at home. And I close my eyes. And it's called Kundalini meditation. There's so many different ways to meditate. That's advanced. So let me just save that for a moment. But what you're really doing is just controlling your breath. It's breath work. That's it. Because when you're preoccupied by controlling your breath, you cannot be preoccupied by any other seemingly big problems that are in actuality small. You cannot be mentally disturbed by those if you are focused on your breathing. Because one thing we do know about human psychology is you cannot feel sad and happy simultaneously, right? You cannot be focused on your breathing and then also focused on your problems simultaneously. That's one limitation we have as human beings. You've never been happy and sad right now at the same time. You can be like happy one minute and then sad the next minute, but not simultaneously. So this is what meditation does for me. It allows me to slow the game down of life. It allows me to close my eyes, focus 3 seconds in on my breath, holding it 1 second at the top and letting it go for 3 seconds, holding it for 1 second at the bottom. And that's how I started. And it started with like 10 minutes. And you're going to get all of these different problems in your life that you proclaim to be yours, even though they're not. They're universal problems that everybody deals with. But your ego wants to label those as your own problems because your ego wants something to make itself feel significant. So it's going to layer on these problems. It has a hero complex. It wants to give you a problem so it can solve it, so it can feel good about itself. But the ego is not you and you are not the ego. And the separation of those two things is where the breath and the control comes in. So as soon as I start to control my breath, I automatically, as a byproduct of that, control my ego because I am not letting my ego in. I am Devin versus ego, and I need ego, and ego needs Devin, but I do need to have that separation of powers. And you just breathe and you focus on breathing. And as soon as your mind strays to the negative, you come back to the positive by focusing on your breathing and your cadence. And it's just numbers. 3, 2, 1, hold. 3, 2, 1, hold. 3, 2, 1, hold. As simple as that is, it's so hard to do for 20 minutes. So start with 5. Start with 6, start with 7. But if you're somebody who experiences a high level of stress, let's say, if you're someone who looks at yourself in the mirror and you can see stress on your face, you can feel it in your pelvis, you can feel it in your shoulders and your neck, I just implore you to try to breathe. Like, even if you're not going to go into a full meditation where you close your eyes and try to breathe for 5 minutes, just on the way to work, take 20 big deep breaths consciously. and try to think about nothing else but those 20 breaths. You guys, I'm telling you, if you have a high level of stress in your life, it is easily dissipated if you just have the discipline for self-control, which is, to me, the foundation of what contemporary meditation is. And you start there. And now my journey, as Trisha's mentioned, her journey, my meditation journey has gone like levels. And now I could sit down and like, because I practice so much, I could sit down and meditate with like DG and like these spiritual people who will sit there for 2 hours. I went to the jungle and meditated for 8 hours in the jungle in Tulum, Mexico. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my, guys, the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I played professional sports as well. It was the hardest thing I ever done in my life, to let your ego talk shit to you for 2 straight hours before it finally realized that you weren't going to go anywhere. And then the next 6 hours, it was a really eye-opening experience for me. So if this can just get any of you started into meditation, or the prerequisite to that, controlling your breath, breathing, breath work, just allowing yourself to be focused on something that is ultra present, not defining yourself by the past, not defining yourself by what might happen in the future, but truly staying here where your feet are on the ground, not worried about the past, not worried about the future. Your life will get better. And that's the one answer I have to people when they say, hey, how do you do the things? How do you do all the things? It's self-control. Slow life down and breathe. And it's such a simple thing that hardly nobody does.
Yeah, I'm one of those people. I need to get better at that. Just listening to you speak about that, I just recently had an experience last week where I could have just used that moment to where I had a stressful moment, and I probably should have just like left and meditated. So I know, one of the cool things about being on the marketing side of Burn Boot Camp, I get to see what's coming down the pipeline. And if you guys have not read the Burn Boot Camp, the new book, Devin and Morgan co-authored, we talk about the Burn Boot Camp lifestyle. And there's so many things that are coming down the pipeline from us that's really going to help our lives. And I know for me specifically, I don't meditate currently. My go-to for my mental health is going to work out, taking camp specifically. That's why I prioritize it. I try and schedule it. I give myself a goal of camps to hit, because I know that if I can take camp, that for me is going to be my stress reliever. But I also need other tips, just like Devin said, because there are moments that just pop up on you. And as much as I try to have awareness for those moments, I don't always get it right. I'm human, and I need those strategies in my back pocket to help me be a better leader, be a better person, be a better mom, friend, all of those things. So this is a little plug to just stay tuned for some of the things we have coming down the pipeline. But Hearn, what do you do for stress? Do you meditate?
I do. I have actually recently started meditating just a little bit. And I'm so glad that you brought this up, because one of the key symptoms that we start to see during menopause, and I know we're going to get into that, but is increased anxiety and stress, mood swings, depression. And one of the main things that we can focus on to kind of help us navigate through those symptoms is stress management. And so I love that you brought up, Devin, like if you're someone who feels that anxiety, as we age and our cortisol, starts to spike as estradiol starts to downregulate your estrogen, our sympathetic nervous system is kind of in overdrive, right? That's that flight or fight kind of nervous system in our body. And what we want is to activate our parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down, that rest and digest. And breathing is one of the key ways that we can do this. And so, I love and applaud, Devin, that you meditated for 8 hours. I struggle to do it for 5 or 10 minutes. But there are even apps you can download, right, that will walk you through just basic, simple breathing exercises. And I definitely have found that when I'm feeling that heightened sense of anxiety, and a little bit overwhelmed, just stopping and taking time to breathe. And there are other things that you can do for meditation as well. Some people find journaling really helpful, prayer, all of those things. But the breath work involved really does cause your body to activate that parasympathetic nervous system. And that's what we want to calm ourselves down. And so, yeah, I mean, it sounds super simple. Like Devin said, just, 3 seconds in, hold for 3 seconds, breathe out. But you will immediately feel after a couple of breaths that your body, that parasympathetic nervous system kick in, and everything starts to just, like, you can take a deep breath. And so I love that. I mean, yeah, it's a brand new concept for me. I was kind of like Devin. I saw it as like this is just something like that I'm not going to ever do. And I don't like to sit still.
Same.
So it is a self-discipline for me as well, self-control. So yeah, I definitely think, especially when we're talking about stress management, when we're talking about anxiety, when we're talking about, just like Devin said, all of the things that are coming at us day after day. And as you mentioned, Trish, just being a mom and wanting to be present for my family and not allow those things to take over. This is just a key ingredient to really just, we have to have strategies in place. And this is just one simple strategy that I think, yes, we can absolutely utilize as we go through our menopause journey, but just in general in life, whether you're a 30-something male or a 40-something mom, you know, we need to know how we can still our minds and quiet our minds and get back to being rooted in the things that are positive.
Yeah, and I really think that in the future we'll have some of these solutions on Burn On Demand because it is more of a lifestyle app for you guys. I mean, it's mind, body, it's emotion, it's spirit, it's relationship, it's time, work, money, all the things that really encompass us as human beings and, you know, make up our quote unquote lifestyle. And as you all know that who are a part of this organization and have been for some time, that's the real focus, right? It's not showing up, you know, being focused on like getting a 6-pack sometime in the future and then like, you know, and then we leave. This is, you know, sometimes like you guys mentioned, exercise can be meditative. It's not inherently meditative, but if you take that approach and that attitude to it, meaning that what I mean by meditative versus any other form of serenity, praying, working out, what I mean by the difference for me is, what am I thinking about? Am I thinking about the past or the future? Then that's not meditative. If I'm running, you know, running gets a great rap for being meditative. If I'm only focused on the next step, that's like the step I'm on right now and taking that's it. And I love running for that reason. I feel that way in camp sometimes, especially on like easy circuit formats where it's just like 60 seconds at these 7, just go and just go. You don't have to think about much. Yeah. And so yeah, that would be good to have you guys maybe do some type of, you could do TM, transcendental meditation. I call it TM. Tony, pull up TM for me real quick. And I just want to read the folks what TM is. But yeah, this is what I kind of started with. And this is where most people start with. Ash, when you talk about like the apps and everything, most of the apps are TM. So we'll come back to that. You got anything for us, Tony? Yeah, see if you can't find something. But we are in World Mental Health Day. So are you going to try some meditation out there, everyone? What? Yes, no, maybe so. We got to figure out how to do polls here, Chelsea. We're going to do some polls in the future. And I wanted to ask the audience what their favorite type of meditation is. Do they plan on doing it? Are you willing to do it for 5 minutes? I want to get some real-time case studies going here into the future. And if you can't pull up anything, Tony, no worries. We can always come back to it later. It's not a big deal. We do have an opportunity after we're done with meditation, though, to get back to real life. And you've got to get back to real life. Go ahead, Tony. Pull up transcendental meditation for us. Okay. So TM is a form of silent meditation developed by Mahesh Yogi. The TM technique involves the silent repetition of a mantra or a sound. It is practiced for 15 to 20 minutes twice per day. It is taught by certified teachers through a standard course of instruction, which costs a fee that varies by country. We began teaching this technique in the mid 1950s. Go down to, where does it say how do you exactly do it? Does it say at the bottom anywhere? The technique, here it is. The meditation practice involves the use of silently used mantras, 15, 20 minutes. We said that is reported to be one of the most widely practiced, which is why I recommended it to you, and among the most widely researched meditation techniques with hundreds of published research studies. That is a big one. If you're a data person, go read some of those studies, get your eyeballs on them. This stuff actually really works. It's not just guru spiritual science. It's actual science, physiological science, psychological science. The technique is made available worldwide through the TM teachers like we talked about. You could pay for it. You could do it on your own. I watched YouTube videos and I never paid for it. And it started back in the 60s. So just a little bit on it. And it's a big movement. And a lot of people get started with the transcendental meditation and you can move on to something more aggressive like I do, like a Kundalini meditation, which involves like energy chakras and all that. And that's for a different podcast. We can talk about that later. That's a more advanced form, but I've been now in like 5 or 6 years. And you can take a journey in this side of the house too. And, whether it's meditation or prayer or whatever, however you connect to whatever's bigger than you in your life, I think that's necessary in order for us to feel whole as a human being in the long run. But after you're done with that, we got to get to camp. And so you're going to need some Ignite, all right? Do you sometimes need a little boost? I know I certainly need a boost, especially when I do camp in the morning and on the road. We have multiple flavors of Ignite in peach, pink lemonade, green apple, blue raspberry. And as you can see, if you're watching this, Ignite is for before the workouts. It's a pre-workout, a superfood green matcha tea-based energy powder that boosts workout focus and performance so we can get those couple extra reps in. You can get yours at any Burn Bootcamp gym across the country. There's now 412 thanks to Tom and Colleen, and more on the way, many, many more on the way. Or you can also get it on e-com. And by the way, our locations have stores. And each one of those stores, if you buy it online, your location is actually being credited for that sale. So you're supporting your local gym as well. All right. What's your go-to, Trish?
I'm now a blue raspberry girly. I just took some this morning before camp, but before that I was pink Ignite, pink lemonade, or green apple. What about you?
I'm team green apple all the way. It's my favorite. I do like the blue raspberry, but to me, green apple is the best.
I feel like it's picking children. I can't say one, so I just take a quarter scoop from all four and just put it.
Oh no!
You know,
you don't.
I swear. Really? Oh yeah. I
You're
swear.
like the kid at the
Devin
soda
Klein
fountain. That
special.
just
Yeah,
mixes
unless
them
I'm like
all
out
up.
of one for whatever reason, but like it's usually like, pink lemonade for sure is still my favorite, even though I want to say blue raz because it's the newest.
Yeah.
Pink lemonade and then blue raz, green apple, peach, and I'll put them all together for sure. I can't just like pick out one child,
That's
They'll get
incredible.
angry. So you guys
Is that like a disclaimer? Don't try this at home.
don't try it. Don't try this at home. I'm constantly doing weird stuff. I'm weird, and my kids call me weird. And I'm like, thank you. I don't want to just be normal. Okay, we're gonna talk about another member question. Okay, this one comes from Chelsea. We're gonna answer Chelsea's question. She's from Hiram, Georgia. How do you stay motivated when you're not seeing the results that you'd like to as quickly as you'd like to? How do you stay motivated when you're not seeing results? Let's go to you guys. Trisha, why don't you give us your thoughts on this one?
Gosh, that's such a good question because I still feel that sometimes. I mean, I think I'm, again, human, and we all I think it's also with this quick fix culture that we live in now. And, I have friends that are taking Ozempic and it's all over my feed, and celebrities are losing weight super fast. And so I think it would be, I would say that I wouldn't be telling the truth if I said I don't think about that, where I would just be like, dang, it'd be really nice to lose 5 pounds really fast. But I think for me, I always go back to, and I've said this before and I'll continue saying it, it's going back to my routine, going back to, I know, my calorie intake, if I'm trying to reach a certain goal, I know that I'm going to work out to reach my certain goal. So it's going back to what is my goal? And then what are my strategies to get to that goal? And then to remind myself that I need to be patient, right? That it's worth the journey. And then it's also, Burn Bootcamp, we talk a lot about, this is for your life, right? You want to make lifelong choices. You don't want that quick fix. So while yes, it can be in my brain because that's what I'm being consumed with when I'm on the scroll on Instagram and TikTok, I have to remind myself that I'm in it for the long game, and I want to make sure that, I'm healthy for my kids, I'm strong for my kids, and I have energy at the end of the day. So I want to do it the right way. So really, I don't know if I answered your question other than really just kind of, I hear you and I feel you, and it's hard. Hearn, trainer.
Yeah, I think,
help us.
Gosh, Trish, I think you just hit on so many important things and everything that you just said. And one of the things you talked about was routine. And we really like to talk about motivation. Like, I got to feel motivated before I do something, but really it's just the daily practice of doing the same thing over and over again, right? Discipline is what's going to serve you when motivation fails, right? When we have discipline, if it's just what we do, right? It's just what I do. I just go to the gym. It's just part of my habits and my lifestyle. I'm not always going to be motivated. So that discipline and just that routine of this is just part of my life. And I do it for the reasons that you just mentioned, for those long-term health benefits, for that sustainability of life. That's kind of where, for me personally, on the days that I don't feel that motivation and maybe I'm not seeing the results that I want, Trish, you brought up such a good point in this instant gratification culture and just kind of the trends that are out there right now that are, a little bit dangerous, but seem like a great idea because they give us the results that we want really quickly. At the end of the day, we want to be doing the things that are sustainable habits and that are going to give us those long-term results for life. Can I sustain this? And is this going to actually benefit me, not just immediately, but 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, because I have developed these habits that are going to carry me through these kind of peaks and valleys of motivation that we all experience. And then I think the second thing is just having that accountability, right? For me, when I don't necessarily feel motivated, I know that there are people that are expecting me to be there. And that accountability, whether it's with my burn sisters, whether it's just even accountability to my family, right? And knowing that I want to show up as my best self for them. Sometimes that is what I draw back on when I'm not feeling that motivation. But really, it's practice and discipline are always going to come before motivation. And they're what's going to, kind of guide you through when you're not feeling it.
Yeah, and you're talking really about identity too, right? A lot like you see that in burn, which is it's such a cool thing to experience when the brand touches people in a way in which it becomes a part of their identity and they do become just someone that goes to the gym. And to me, that translates into something that I think is universally impactful, no matter what career field you're in, no matter what your ambitions are. And long before burn, my ambition was to be a professional, a big league baseball player. And I fell a little bit short of that. But what got me there to the table, like having a seat at the table, signing a professional contract with the San Francisco Giants organization, was the fact that the trophy wasn't as important as the training. The training, the daily training that you would put in would be what you would actually enjoy. Like that's the sense of accomplishment, right? It's not like at the end of the season, whether you get the trophy or not is only going to be a compound effect of all of the times you were training. That's it. That's all. Those who train harder have a higher likelihood to win the trophy. And, think about like, I don't know, George Clooney or something. Like, I don't know. I think George Clooney, like any actress, right? Gabrielle Union, for example, she wouldn't be award-winning actress, or he wouldn't be an award-winning actress if they were focused on the box office and the numbers that come in and not being happy unless the box office numbers run, because then you don't create the art. Like you're focused, you're not focused on enjoying the process of creating the art when you're focused on the outcome of what will happen when you do. And I think that's a really important lesson for us as humans in general. So when you're not seeing results as quickly as you might like, Chelsea, well, maybe what you like has to change. Like maybe your idea of results have to change. Maybe results in which this context, I think you mean the trophy, or where you'd like to be at the end, what your vision for the end of all of this hard work is. And if you're not there, if you're not lined up, those two blueprints don't line up, I'll tell you right now, the strongest force that we have as human beings is to be in alignment with the blueprint that we set out for ourselves. Like you've got a game plan for your life. And if that game plan veers left or veers right, negativity, a negative emotion, sadness, unhappiness, disappointment, right? Until you snap back to, so sometimes we've got to actually blow up the blueprint. If that is the case, if we're chronically unhappy, there's a story Tony Robbins told one time of a aspiring NBA basketball player who's I believe was in a harsh accident and had his legs taken from him in that harsh accident, and was just depressed, like a manic depressed person until he met Tony, because he no longer could make the NBA, and he knew that. And his entire life was all about getting the accolades from being this player, put in all the work in because he wanted to get that trophy at the end. And as soon as that opportunity was taken away from him, his entire life flattened and started to spiral down, because now that his identity was gone. And so that story has always stuck out to me. It's like, man, we've got to enjoy where we're at here today. Kind of going back to what we were talking about before with meditation. But that's a great question, Chelsea. How do you stay motivated? Training versus the trophy. What's more important? It's a really good one. What are your guys' thoughts? Let us know. Or if you have any questions, podcast@burnbootcamp.com. Thanks, Chelsea, for sending your question to podcast@burnbootcamp.com. I wanted to go to one more member Q&A. Ashley, I'm going to start with you on this one.
Sure.
And we are talking a little bit about this with the fruit conversation, but we're talking about fiber here. This is Dylan. What's up, Dylan? Dylan is an FP from Brandon, Florida. What's up, Brandon, Florida? You guys are doing great, by the way. Thank you for your question, Dylan. And here's what he asked. He said, you all spoke about fiber a bit and its importance of health and benefits in a recent episode. A lot of companies will package their food and highlight the net carbs. Why does fiber subtract from the total carb amount? And is this something we should be considering when we are tracking our macros? All right, let's break this question down into two parts. Why does fiber subtract from total carb count? That's question one. And then, is this something we should be considering when tracking our macros?
I'm glad you broke that down into two questions because I see them as two separate questions. So there's a science reason why, we can subtract fiber from net carbs. And that's because the body doesn't absorb or digest all types of fiber. And so it doesn't necessarily impact our calorie count or impact blood sugar, right? And so that's why sometimes on a package label, you'll see total carbs and then you'll see net carbs. The problem is it can be really nuanced, right? Because there's different types of fiber. You've got your insoluble fibers and then your soluble fibers, right? And so they break down differently. And so unless you know exactly what type of fiber that we're talking about, also you've got whole foods that have naturally occurring fiber, which you can easily subtract versus processed foods, which have sugar alcohols and things like that, where you would subtract a certain portion of the sugar, alcohol, and the fiber. And so it just gets to be this really nuanced calculation. And you could obviously use what's on a package label if you're talking about a processed food in terms of tracking. However, we know that food labels are notoriously inaccurate. So that's the why behind why some people would think, okay, I can subtract the fiber from this and then my net carbs is lower. Should we consider it when tracking? My advice is honestly, it's such a nuanced thing at that point that unless you are, training for a fitness competition or you're an elite athlete, or maybe you have some sort of insulin resistance or something like that, that this is a really important nuance for you to make and distinguish when you're tracking. I personally would just track your total carbs. Now, that doesn't mean we don't want fiber, right? Fiber is such an essential nutrient that we do need. And I know you guys have talked about that in podcasts in the past, and it's an incredibly important thing when we're talking about menopausal women, their need to get fiber just for all the benefits that it gives us. It supports our digestion and bowel movements, right? It helps with weight management. It helps, it is slower to digest, or we don't digest at all. So we feel full longer. It boosts gut health. There's just so many good things about it. However, from a tracking perspective, it's going to make such a little difference in your total number of carbs that I don't think that it matters. Like I said, typically when we talk about tracking, we're going to give a little bit of a range anyway for the average person that's tracking a macronutrient and micronutrients, right? So unless there is a very specific reason, like I said, you're an elite athlete, you're training for a fitness competition where your body composition really, really matters. To me, it's just, and it's probably going to be inaccurate if you do anyway. You're not going to get an exact number. That I'm not sure that it's really necessary. And that's just my personal opinion on it. I don't know. You may have different thoughts.
I'm going to go to Chat GPT real quick, just so that I can break down the answer to this question from Chat GPT, because I thought all that was really great, Ash. And this basically I'm going to read this. It says, why are net carbs important? Tony, you've got something pulled up too, I think, that we could look at. But blood sugar control, net carbs are the ones that influence your blood sugar and insulin levels, like you were saying. If you're monitoring your blood sugar, like people with diabetes or those on low carb diets, focusing on net carbs helps prevent the spikes in blood glucose or blood sugar. So that's really what the difference is. Fiber is not as easily digestible, if at all, some types, and which Ash covered that cleanly. So I won't go deep into that. But net carbs, I don't focus on it personally. I just try to eat foods that come from the earth and that don't come out of boxes. And that if you do that, it tends to, and you're just eating whole foods, it just tends to work itself out. And I don't try to jump on to any kind of bandwagon diets. I'll try stuff for sure, just to see if it's a better lifestyle for me. But keto and low carb diets have never really worked for me because we train so hard. Mm-hmm. And I just have known people that have really bad experiences with keto diets and those types of things from like just lack of overall health. Yeah, you lose weight like crazy, but you can lose weight like crazy restricting calories with any quote unquote style. The digestive health you talked about, since fiber does not count towards net carbs, you eat more fiber-rich foods, which are good for digestion. You're going to keep your net carb intake low. So generally speaking, if you're eating foods that come from the earth, like fruit, net carbs aren't such a issue. It starts to become an issue when you get into like the more manufactured processed foods and what ingredients are being like, cobbled together to create this food, and how do they break down in different ways? Honestly, it's just too complicated for me. I don't know
agree.
about y'all.
Yeah,
It's just too
same.
complicated for me. I don't even want to really go there. So I'm just like, eat food that comes from the earth. How about that? Let's just do that. And if we do that, it'll take care of all of these issues. Trish, what do you think?
I'm just going to say I agree because Ashley, you covered it so well. And then Devin, you brought up your ChatGPT stuff. I don't have anything else to add here other than I'm going to I like to be not as complicated. So I'm going to track just high level. I will say I am going to take inventory of my fiber that I'm getting into my body to make sure that I am making sure that it's a priority, but I'm not going to get so nitty gritty with like, am I subtracting it from my overall?
I love that thought.
Yeah,
Yes.
carbohydrates. So great
Be
job,
cognizant
guys.
of the fiber that you're eating. It's
Yeah.
important. We want it, but we don't need to get into the nuanced calculations, right? When we're tracking our foods, like I said, unless you have a very specific high level goal.
Yeah, and so just to give you guys like some vegetables and some fruits just quickly to round this out, that could be examples of some fibrous foods that you might want to have consistently in your diet: broccoli, Brussels sprouts, carrots, spinach, kale, cauliflower in the vegetable category. Apples with the skin, by the way, is where a lot of that fiber lives. Pears, berries, oranges, bananas, especially raspberries and blackberries. Legumes, lentils, chickpeas, black beans, kidney beans, split peas, whole grains, oats, brown rice, quinoa, barley, some whole wheat bread or pasta. I personally don't eat a lot of whole wheat bread or pasta. I either eat chickpea pasta like it's in our burn meals, or I'll stick to quinoa, which is the seed of a grain, not necessarily the same thing as a whole wheat. You have nuts and seeds, almonds, chia seeds, flax seeds, sunflower seeds, and walnuts. So there's just some examples for you guys if you wanted to throw some more fibrous foods in your diet. Nuts and seeds are kind of my favorite go-to. Almonds, I'll just keep those basically with me everywhere. And that tends to get protein, fat, good fiber, really solid to have some nuts and some seeds in your regimen on a daily basis. Okay. Pretty sure we covered that question. Dylan, thank you from Brandon, Florida for emailing in podcast@burnbootcamp.com and asking your question. We are going to move on to what you've all been waiting for. We've got the guest here in the house, a expert, Ashley Hearn, in menopause, in all things menopause, certified menopause coaching specialist. She is officially, and we're going to talk about it. It's something that I'm educating myself on. We all tend as human beings to be educated on things that most impact you. And so this is one that's pretty far from impacting me directly, indirectly, often, right? Through Burn Boot Camp. And so I'm here to educate and ask questions as much as I am to host and have a great conversation around menopause. So let's let you take it over wherever you want to go. And then Trisha and I will turn to the question side of the house. We'll just start pinging you with some questions. Okay?
I'm actually just so excited that we're having this conversation because I think for so long, menopause was this taboo thing that no one talked about. And, I've had conversations with my mother and just some older women in my life, and they've said like, it was just, no one ever talked about it. No one ever talked about what was happening in your body. It was just the change, right? Mm-hmm. You would hear people refer to it as that, but it really is such a huge part of a woman's life. And I think just to define some things. So for our listeners and just for people who maybe don't really understand, like, what is menopause? When does that happen? Who does this impact? The average age for menopause for most women is between 45 and 55, with 51, 52 being the average in the United States. But women can start to experience symptoms of menopause. That's the perimenopause, your new word that you said you learned, up to 7 to 10 years before they go
this
through
is a before
actual
thing. I thought
menopause.
This was an after thing.
No, that's postmenopause.
Oh.
So 7 to 10 years before they hit official menopause, which is just, the definition of that is just when they've ceased to have a menstrual period for 12 months. So 7 to 10 years before. So if the range is 45 to 55, it's not unheard of that a 35-year-old woman could be experiencing symptoms of menopause, perimenopause. And then postmenopause is, any time frame after that. And women can experience significant symptoms up to a decade after menopause. So anywhere from ages 35 to like 65,
wow,
women are dealing with the repercussions of the loss of estrogen and progesterone in their body as their ovarian function ceases. And so that just, I think a lot of women, they think, well, I'm only in my late 30s, I'm in my 40s, but they're having these really weird symptoms in their body and they don't know what's going on and they have no idea what's actually happening to them is that their estrogen levels are declining. And so as a result, estrogen impacts every system in the body. We could start at the top of our head and we could go down to our toes, and literally estrogen plays a role in every organ function in the body. And so they start to experience these crazy symptoms and they have no idea what's going on. And really it's that they are in perimenopause.
When is like that average?
51 is the
Or
average
51?
age in the United States.
Okay.
It's different in different countries, but 51 is the average in the United States. So, most women by their mid to late 40s are experiencing symptoms of estrogen decline.
That is. So it's rare then to be a 35-year-old going through perimenopause. It's not so
45
rare.
to 55 is average. So probably late 30s is more likely, but there are definitely women who hit that mid 30 marker and start to experience some symptoms.
And go ahead, Trish.
I just have so many
So
questions.
me too. I'm just going to start pinging them unless you just interject. So go ahead.
So what you said something about perimenopause, and you said not having a period for 12 months. Is that like a first indicator that you could potentially be in that perimenopause?
So, cycle disruption in your cycles is definitely a symptom, right, of menopause, but women can be in perimenopause and still having their monthly cycle regularly. So that's not necessarily the first symptom that women see. Just menopause, the definition is once you haven't had one for 12 months. Okay. As you approach menopause itself, there will be more cycle disruption. Sometimes they're closer together. Sometimes they're farther apart. Sometimes there's bleeding in between. Sometimes they're heavier. The thing about menopause that I think makes it such an interesting and fascinating conversation is there is no one size fits all. And so every woman's experience is different. And the way that her body presents is different than my experience is going to be different than your experience. And so it is important to maybe note maybe some of the symptoms that women would experience, right? Because they may be having completely regular cycles. Nothing has changed in that regard, and yet they are experiencing perimenopausal symptoms. So we can talk. You want me to talk about that?
Yeah.
Some of the symptoms?
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously the one that we think most is like hot flashes, night sweats, right? That's what you typically think menopause is. That actually really comes in later menopause. Some of the early symptoms are things that you wouldn't even think about: brain fog, fatigue, anxiety, itchy eyes, itchy ears, dry skin, heart palpitations, tinnitus, which is like ringing of the ears, joint pain. Gosh, I feel like I could go on and on and on. Constipation, sleep disruptions become a big one, sometimes because of hot flashes and night sweats, but a lot of their circadian rhythm just gets out of whack as estrogen starts to decline. Like I said, you could really start at the top of your head and go down to your toes, but joint pain, fatigue, brain fog, increased anxiety, those are a lot of the things we start to see in early menopause.
So how do the fluctuating progesterone and estrogen levels impact us from a physical standpoint, and how do you counteract that with exercise?
Yeah. So it's what starts to happen is kind of from the science perspective, and I'll be super brief on it because I know people don't necessarily want the science, but just as an understanding, women are born with all of the eggs that we're going to have. And by the time we're 30, we have about 10%. And by the time we're 40, we have about 3%. And so as the number of eggs that we have declines and the health and viability of the eggs decline, the brain has a harder time getting the body to produce the egg, right? The ovaries don't receive the signal the same. And so the brain keeps, hey, we need estrogen. Hey, we need estrogen. We need estrogen. And so it's firing these signals to the pituitary to tell them, hey, release the eggs. And so they struggle to do that. And so it becomes this like zone of chaos hormonally in the body. And so we have estrogen peaks early on because maybe it all of a sudden releases multiple eggs. And so it's kind of just this chaotic time in a woman's life from a hormonal standpoint. And so that then is what causes all of these weird symptoms. So what do we do about that, right, is your question. And how does fitness play a role? So we know that exercise, right, is very key in a couple of the things that we talked about, these symptoms: anxiety, mood swings, right, brain fog, fatigue. When we exercise, right, it does produce those endorphins. It helps our serotonin, our dopamine, some of these other hormones that are impacted by the loss of estrogen or the decline in estrogen. And so it can really help circumvent it. It also helps with regulating our body temperature, right? So when we exercise and our body is able to regulate our body temperature a little bit more, there's some research that shows that can help with the decrease in hot flashes and night sweats and some of the other things. And then one of the biggest things that happens during menopause, and this is more post-menopausal, but also during perimenopause, it's so important to start, is we start to see a decline in muscle mass in our bone health. And so strength training during these years becomes pivotal. It becomes one of the most important things that we can do to prevent sarcopenia, osteopenia, right? And we've got to start that early, right? If you're postmenopausal and you haven't started strength training, it doesn't mean that you can't start and that you won't see the benefits from it. However, if we can establish these habits, well before we hit this time frame, then the research shows that there is much less risk of declining muscle mass, right? And we're able to maintain it and also continue to build it throughout those years. As we decline in estrogen, it just gets really difficult for women to do that. And so that's why the strength training is important. And then from a cardiovascular health standpoint, cardiovascular disease is the number one killer of women. And as we lose estrogen, it does impact our cardiovascular health as well. And so having the strength training coupled with the cardio is just an essential combination really for women to maintain optimal health as they navigate through this time frame.
So I get so many questions from members across Burn Nation that ask me, how do I change what I'm doing at Burn? I'm going through menopause, I'm perimenopausal, I'm postmenopausal. How do I change? And what I hear you saying is you don't really, outside of maybe like from an exercise standpoint, you're maybe listening to your body more in a more sensitive way. You're maybe, you tell me, but I hear you saying you don't really change what you're doing. You actually triple down on what you're doing. And especially from a strength training perspective, like, if you're in that phase of life, you have this natural proclivity to lose bone mass. Mm-hmm. And so one of the number one ways to fight osteoporosis in any case, no matter what the underlying pathology is, would be strength training. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying, I think I hear you saying, is it's no different here. In fact, we actually want to triple down on strength training because osteoporosis is more likely in someone who is in this phase of life.
Yes, absolutely. I don't know the exact numbers, and I wish I did, but I think it's once you hit age 45, the rate at which we start losing bone mass doubles. Mm-hmm. It's like an extreme amount. And that has to do with the decline in estrogen. So to answer your question, Devin, absolutely, we have to prioritize our strength training. And I'm a Burn Boot Camp trainer, and I believe in what we're doing. And I think that it is for every woman, no matter what phase and stage of life that she's in. And especially as we go through this phase, because number one, it's our community. And one of the things that women experience in this time is the sense of isolation and depression and, the mood swings and the anxiety. And we can't lose our community while we're walking through this really kind of chaotic time in our lives, right? That's also it kind of parallels with, I'm 45 years old, definitely perimenopausal. I have a child that just got married. I have aging parents, right? So it's this time in your life where there's a lot going on. And then we're saying, oh, well, maybe I can't be a part of this community that means so much to me. Absolutely not. That's a key ingredient and thing that we need as we go through perimenopause and menopause. But I think to your point, Devin, the strength training should become non-negotiable during this time frame, and heavy lifting, right? Heavy lifting becomes really important as we age because it is a little bit more difficult for our body to put on that muscle mass and to maintain it. And so we want to pick up those heavy weights. It's important. And the cardiovascular health aspect is important too. What we change is how we support it outside of the gym with our nutrition, our sleep habits, and our stress management. And I think that's where the key really comes in, is that, I've sat across from so many women in focus meetings who are in this age gap, and even in my mid 30s, like listening to them and them saying, I'm just doing all the same things and nothing's working, and I think that the problem is the same things that we were doing weren't really quite enough to support what we need during this time. And so your nutrition, your sleep habits, and your stress management become the key to being able to maintain the fitness routine that's so important during this time.
I have a question about cortisol, because your
Yeah.
cortisol increases when you're going through menopause, like your levels of cortisol. And I know I've had questions, people have asked me, like, you shouldn't do certain workouts when you're experiencing high levels of cortisol. Can you just set the record straight on like what that
Yeah.
all means and then what that means for your fitness regimen as well?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about that. And on like, yes, exercise puts stress on the body, but that's a healthy stress. That's a healthy stress that your body actually needs. And so we like to demonize this cortisol and say, oh, well, you have high cortisol, so you can't do burn boot camp workouts, right? The truth is we can manage cortisol fluctuations much better through our diet, right? And the things that we eat. I mean, even just simple things like knowing cortisol rhythms, like your cortisol spikes about 20 to 30 minutes after waking up, right? And so a lot of times as women, what we do is we get up and we caffeinate and we don't eat. And then we go straight to our workouts and then we wonder why we don't feel great, right? Whereas if we just had about 15 grams of protein, 20 to 30 minutes after waking, it kind of helps reduce that cortisol level. Then we're ready to caffeinate and go into our workouts, right? So there's little things that people can do to manage that. And I think I don't love when people say that, because then it inhibits people from moving. Yeah. At the end of the day, they need to move, And so a lot of the research is changing. There's a lot of studies that are coming out that show that HIIT is a huge benefit twice a week, at least, for women in the menopause transition. And even that plyometrics can stimulate bone health growth, like bone growth. And so I feel like the research is starting to shift on that. I feel like it was like very trendy there for a while to say that. And now as we're actually seeing research come out, people who are doing research on actually women and women in this time frame. I mean, women have just for so long been understudied and underrepresented as we've studied, especially fitness and health. Honestly, it's just been in the last 15 years that we're actually like, oh, women are different than men. They're not the same and they have different hormones. And, we're starting to see that there are other ways to manage our cortisol. And Devin made a great point. Yes, we've got to listen to our bodies, right? But listening to our bodies doesn't mean not moving, right? There are ways that we can continue to move that are really going to benefit us more in the long term than thinking, well, I can no longer do these things.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, I don't know if
that
helps.
was super helpful for me, because that's kind of what my gut had said whenever I was getting these, but I'm not an expert in the space. And every time anyone would ask me, I'm like, I wish I had Ashley Hearn here to like help me use the research and the data.
Well, here's what you're going to
this make
find.
sense.
There are going to be people who say different things all the time. You could research this and find 100 articles and they're all going to say different things, right? And so it's really, rooting yourself in people that specialize in women's health, and again, there's this trend now. People are coming out and saying, oh, well, actually we were wrong. Like exercise stress is good stress on your body, and we need to manage our cortisol by relieving unhealthy stressors, right? Which Devin talked about with the meditation and the things like that, by focusing on, our diet in terms of, and I think, there's more about this maybe to come later. I don't know if we even have time, but anti-inflammatory foods and avoiding foods that are inflammatory become key. That's just a good idea anyway. Yeah. But once we go through menopause, estrogen works as a natural anti-inflammatory in our body. And so as it declines and we lose that, we then have to be a lot more conscious of what we're eating in terms of foods that cause inflammation and adding foods that decrease inflammation. And all of that supports cortisol levels going down.
Let's go there, because Holly has a question, and she's from Harrisburg, North Carolina, that flows right into what you were just transitioning into, which is, what are some nutrition tips to help manage menopausal symptoms, and how can a diet complement a fitness routine during this transition? So if you want to just take that question from Holly, thank you, Holly, from Harrisburg, North Carolina, and kind of go into the nutrition anti-inflammatory benefits, I think that'll be a good bridge.
Holly, that's a great question. And one of the things that we haven't really talked about, and I know we could talk about this for 90 minutes, right? Number one, protein intake. And I know we say that all the time, but this becomes even more critical and crucial as we go through menopause and perimenopause, because it is more difficult for your body to maintain muscle mass and build muscle mass. In fact, a lot of studies are coming out and showing, I think that the FDA recommends like 0.08 grams or something, which we know is low anyway, but for menopausal women, it's like 1.7 grams per kilogram of body weight or whatever. And so it's a lot, right? We need the protein in order, because the muscles don't synthesize the protein quite the same way as estrogen declines. And so protein is number one, always number one. It's always number one, whether you're 20 or whether you're 80. but it becomes crucial during this time of life. And then the second thing is focusing on these foods that are anti-inflammatory. Devin said, like, if it comes from the earth, right, that we want to eat it. And that is absolutely the case here, because those foods typically they're rich in fiber, which is an important micronutrient as we go into menopause. But also there are foods that are natural anti-inflammatories, berries, like you mentioned before, right? There's lots of fruits and vegetables and that are that. And then, I mean, I know no one wants to hear this, but we have to limit things that create inflammation, like sugar, alcohol, right?
Alcohol.
Processed foods, right? Sugary sodas and things like that. They just immediately spike inflammation in the body. And so if we want nutrition that supports our fitness, it's going to be exactly what Devin talked about: protein, rich foods, foods that come from the earth, right? That are going to have those natural anti-inflammatory properties that are going to help reduce the inflammation that we're experiencing rising in our body as we lose estrogen. Yeah.
Well, this has been a great conversation. We're going to have more conversation about menopause, menopausal symptoms, post perimenopausal scenarios. And Ashley, you are our resident expert for all things.
I'm here for it.
Pregnancy and menopause. I love the pocket that you've really become interested in Burn Nation, which is trainer foundation, but then all of the kind of subsets of life circumstances, especially when it comes to women. And I've watching you grow in your knowledge over the years has been really inspiring. And it's clear that, you really seek to educate Burn Nation and pay that forward as a part of your legacy. So thank you for all the extra certifications and time.
Truly my pleasure. Yeah. I love it. I just want to see women thrive no matter what stage of their life they're in, and so from having babies to being done having babies to menopause, I just think that we don't have to survive it. We can absolutely thrive in it. And knowledge is power, in my opinion. So
I think that's good for today, you guys. What do you think? We covered a lot.
Yeah, I love it.
A lot. Okay. Well, let us know what you thought of this episode in our reviews on Apple. If you love the podcast, then we'd love for you to drop a review there. And don't forget to take your Ignite, everybody, before your workout. Don't forget to grab your canister of Ignite to give yourself that extra boost you need to push through your workouts. We focus on personal records, or PRs, at Burn Boot Camp, and we have 4 amazing flavors in peach, pink lemonade, green apple, and blue raspberry to get your PR game up. All right? Make sure you go check out the link in the show notes to grab your canister today or buy one in the gym. Thank you so much for being here today, Trish, Ash. You guys are amazing. Gals, you're amazing. Thank you, everybody, for being here listening. We know you could be anywhere else in the world, but you are right here with us on the Burn Boot Camp podcast. Watch on YouTube, watch on Spotify, listen on Apple. And as always, y'all, we are going to take it out with 2 claps on 2. 1, 2. We'll see you next time.